Hey, and welcome, guys. Today we have from AMT ERTL the Star Wars Darth Vader figure. This is an older set. Not real sure exactly how old it is. Pretty old. Anyway, I've been doing a lot of figures lately. I've been kind of getting into them, so I thought I'd give this one a shot. Now, this one is looking on the box. It does recommend using super glue. It says basic modeling skills are helpful, so hopefully I have at least some basic modeling skills, and it includes a lightsaber. So let's take a quick look at what we got here. I've already opened it up and looked at it. Now, this will be my first vinyl model. I've never worked with vinyl before. I just recently did my first resin one, so that was a experience, and I think it turned out well with my Concept X one. Gives us some basic instructions. Not a whole lot of parts with these kits from what I can tell. Up here it kind of gives us a guideline of what we need to cut off. That's one thing. I've been watching a few videos from other modelers doing vinyl kits, and it comes up this a large amount of flashing that you have to cut off. Most of them were, I guess, you dip it in some hot water for a few seconds or minutes, I'm not sure. It softens it up, and then you just cut it off with a sharp X-Acto knife. So here we have our parts here. It does include a lightsaber. So let's just take a quick look. And our first impression is this is pretty big. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be from just looking at the box on it. Looking at his cape right here. I mean, that's a pretty significant cape. That's in itself is probably about 10 inches high, just the cape, not including his head. Looking at his head right here, looks like it's really detailed. You get the cowl that goes over it. That's right here. But just if you even wanted to, obviously we're going to paint this up and try to match it and give it some flesh tones and whatnot, and not permanently glued a helmet on, I guess, the cowl, so we can have both looks. So that's pretty nice. Again, really nice size. Nicely detailed. Of course, it has the flashing we'll have to remove. This is his skirt, goes around his waist. Again, probably this one of the biggest things in assembly is this removing a lot of this flashing. The cape and the skirt has flashing that surrounds it. Every part, I think, except for perhaps the helmet here. Doesn't look like that needs any flashing, but that is even, looks like it's detailed inside. Kind of matches helmet, so that probably kind of locks into place, or hopefully anyway. We have a very nice detailed torso with all his switches. It's great. It's just such a great size to look at. That it's going to be easier to paint, and just a lot of nice crisp details on his chest there. We got his legs, again, very nice sharp looking detail. Of course, we'll remove all that. I believe that this is the little chain that goes around his cape, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a nice touch. Any extra. And we get a clear lightsaber. Even the hilt, I guess is what it's called. Maybe I'm wrong. Is clear. So obviously that'll be painted. Now I would like to somehow light this from inside, and I'm not sure how we're going to do that with this handle. I mean, one possibility that I'm thinking is we could drill in there and put a small SMD red light to kind of light the actual saber part of it, or maybe replacing some of this with some tubing, since it's going to be painted over anyway. That'll give us a much nicer area to put our SMD. So I'm thinking, I mean, we could actually probably cut part of this off and attach it to the tubing, but if we replace maybe a section of it with some metal tubing, that might have a better effect. You may lose some detail, but I'd rather have that nice lit lightsaber. I think that would be a great effect for this model. And also maybe add in some lights on his whatever these are, his chest plate, and on his belt I believe there's some lights. I know in the different movies different lights light up. Here they have some painted, I guess, on, but I'm not sure. We'll have to do a little research, and as always I kind of do my own thing, so but it'd be, there's a lot of room in there. So just a matter of figuring out how we're going to light that. And you guys legs and hands and whatnot. So excited about this. Be my first vinyl model. It's you know, I say vinyl, it's not soft, it's hard. I guess when you put it in hot water it will get a little bit more pliable, but it's nicely detailed. So really nice size figure. You know, by the time we get this all assembled, he's probably going to be 12 inches tall. And maybe we can work out some kind of display base or stand for them. That'll look kind of cool. I have a few ideas on that. So anyway, first part is just cutting away all this flashing and start working on ideas on how to light that lightsaber. Alright, I've trimmed all the excess off. I'm working still on just making the fine adjustments here. Trying a little bit of everything. Tried some files, some sanding sticks. I think what's doing the best job is this sharp X-Acto knife. Now to get the bulk of the excess off, I dipped it in some hot water. Now I just used hot tap water, and that seemed to do the job. My tap water gets pretty hot, but it did soften it up quite a bit, and there's a noticeable difference when you get it soft. Now on this his cape here, it had flashing all around it, and this is a huge object. I actually had to use my kitchen sink and fill it up, or at least put a couple inches of some hot water in there, let it soak, cut a little bit, let it soak, cut a little bit, and kind of do all the way around. As you can see, it's still a little rough. Haven't got to the fine detail. I think a lot of what's going to make this look good is this working on the trim. All this had to be trimmed up. Now, to do minor stuff, I find a sharp X-Acto knife kind of does the job. You don't have to warm it up, just cut off small pieces. Just getting the initial bulk part off, though, I highly recommend warming that up. I did get myself on the finger with my X-Acto knife, so be careful with that. It's a lot of cutting, especially when you warm it up. Sometimes you'll go to a kind of a harder, thicker spot, and then all of a sudden you'll hit an easy spot and your knife will flip off. So always cut away from me. I was cutting away from me, but unfortunately I had my finger kind of in the way and I jabbed my finger. So just be very careful with that. So again, this working on details, making sure that we get a good fit on everything, and cutting away any excess flashing, working on the joints. So everything's coming together, just being patient, trying to work everything. Overall, other than the flashing, there's not a lot of trim or sand work on it. I'm sure once we put it together, we're going to have to fill in some seams and stuff of that nature. One thing I didn't notice when I first did my review, because I didn't take it out of the bag, was this helmet comes in a kind of a more shiny, more smooth finish. So I guess that'll be easier to get a nice gloss on this helmet, which will be a focal point. So again, it looks like it sits in the head, so probably won't be attaching that permanently. And kind of reminds me more of the animated Darth Vader on, is it the Clone Wars? I'm not sure. One of those animated series where he had kind of the thinner face. It kind of strikes me more as that kind of Darth Vader, even though this is an older kit. So anyway, that's the progress. Still have a lot to do, and just keep moving forward. Okay, so I think my plan right now for his base is I found this, it's like an outdoor grate. I got it at Ace Hardware. It was $7, nice thick. I just like, it has this great pattern. It looks like it's going to be kind of big enough for him to stand on without taking up too much space. I've already kind of test fitted it. He'll stand on it. Of course, we'll paint it up and maybe add some details. But what I want to do is add some kind of lighting, maybe some red lighting, kind of simulate when they're doing the lightsaber duel on Empire Strikes Back in the Cloud City. There's some sections in there where they're in the one room and it has like a red flooring and a blue background. We'll be able to do blue background. Maybe we can get some red coming up through there or something of that nature. We'll just have to see how it goes. But plenty of space to add some lighting down there. Has a nice look to it. We'll have to kind of cover up some of that. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to cover up. Everything's pretty nice and neat. So I think I'll make a nice display base that we can add a little extra lighting effect to. Hey guys, just working on the lightsaber here. Now this is not the original lightsaber. This was part of the hilt that was included, and it was clear, and just decided to disregard this and build my own. Here's the finished product. It was made out of some brass tubing. I have two different sizes of brass tubing cut in little segments here, super glued together, then added a little styrene plastic for the little knob and for the little grip parts. I took a piece of soldering wire and wrapped it around a toothpick to make a little ring and glued that on here for whatever part that is. Of course, we have a 3mm red LED light embedded in there, and I just cut out a section and then built that put that in there, and this will run through his hand so you won't be able to see that. And the saber part, the light part, is actually a piece of clear sprue that I sanded down and then painted with some transparent red from Tamiya. It's not quite as bright as I had hoped, but it's still a lighted effect, and I think it's a much more accurate saber than Darth Vader's saber. Now, I looked at several pictures. There's actually a couple different versions that look a little different, but for the most part I think it's in the ballpark here. So pretty happy with how that came out. Hopefully it'll go in the hand and look good. Just a little bit about the construction. This little tool here is what I used to cut the brass tubing. You simply insert it in there, you clamp down on it, you rotate the brass tubing a little bit, then you close it a little bit more and rotate it, and it makes a nice rounded off cut when you get down. And eventually it'll just kind of pop off, but you end up with that nice rounded off clean cut look. And that's all I did on here with the two different sizes. I believe the smaller size was almost, it was like a 3.9 something millimeter, and I think the bigger size was I forget the exact size, 4 point something size. So that's the different sizes of brass tubing that I used for the construction of that. Anyway, so I'm just back onto the construction of the actual model. Alright, just before I can start putting the body together, it was recommended to me that I fill the legs with plaster of Paris. Now this is a comes in a powder, and it's exactly as it sounds, plaster of Paris, and it's a very chalk-like powder when you get it. I think this was $6 or $7 for this huge container. And basically what you mix it up, 2 parts powder to 1 part cold water, and it's a very milky fluid. When you pour it out, when you mix together, it's not very thick. And then I just poured it in here. Now you can see I've run some wiring in here to power my lights on his chest and his lightsaber. So I just had to drill a hole through there. Prior to that, I took the legs and the body and heated it up in some warm water and kind of fitted them together in some hot water. Not boiling, but just like hot tap water. Heated it up, made sure that my fit was good. And then once I did that, I poured my plaster of Paris in there. Now this has been in there for probably a couple of hours. It's, as you can tell, it's now rock hard. It's quite a bit of weight onto it. I'm still, I put the legs on. These kind of go in a little bit, so I may feel, I'll have to figure out how much I can fill in there. These are pretty sturdy. I don't know if I'm worried about the weight. They seem very rigid. The legs, on the other hand, did have a little bit of squishiness into them, and that's recommended to me why we should put the plaster of Paris in there, is that over time it could start to sag and fold. It's not going to do that now. This is basically a solid rock now. So anyway, so just getting that done. I've cut away some of the panels here. The plan is I'm going to take some styrene plastic and kind of create a new panel to glue over those, and those will have some green lights in there, and I'm going to do one little red light right in here. You can see where I've cut away part of the tab here, and now I'll have to cut that. Working with vinyl is a lot different than plastic. It doesn't really sand or anything. I have used a file a little bit to some success, but for the most part you just have to take a sharp knife and cut away the areas that you won't cut away. So just working on getting him assembled right now. Alright, kind of jumping way ahead from our last video, got a lot done. Just kind of got busy, forgot to video a lot of segments of it, so just kind of talk you through. As you can see, we got most of his legs and assembled and his torso assembled. We've attached his lightsaber through his hand. We first drilled a hole through the palm of the hand, ran the wiring through it, I ended up painting this hand first before I attached to the body. I then attached the arm to his glove here, and then attached his arm to his torso. Now, attaching the torso, you just take your time, trim it up, and it'll fit pretty well. I did use a little bit of putty in his arm. There's a little bit of a gap there, which is hard to tell now because I painted over it. Once I got it all attached, I primed it, and then now I've used some Krylon gloss black to paint it. Obviously, there's more painting to do. We've also made some modifications right here, styrene. The plan is to put some green lights behind these little openings. Hard to see, but these are actually open. And we'll put some lights behind there, and there'll be some green lights. We have a small opening, and right up here we're going to put a red light, possibly a flashing red light right here, and that'll be covered over with some styrene plastic as well. So this is still a little bit tacky, probably because of the gloss coat. As far as the paint job, what I decided to do is I'm just going to do it all in this Krylon gloss black. It actually has a really nice look to it. Goes on pretty well. And as you can see here, what I've done is I've just taken this Vallejo, this matte varnish, and just brushed onto the legs. So I'm changing up the texture and look of the paint. It's the same paint, we're just changing how it looks. We'll leave his boots glossy, but then on his legs here we did the matte varnish and dulled it down, so we'll get those different tones on his different materials. And we'll do the same over here. We'll put some matte varnish on all the cloth materials. We'll leave a lot of it still glossy. We've got to do some painting here and there for different things. He has some grays on his shoulders. I'm still debating the color and tone. I've looked in the movie. Some people have it very silvery. Some of it's more subdued. So I'm kind of leaning more toward the more subdued striping on the shoulder pads there. We have his head that's been all painted up. And again, we just did it first. It was a Krylon. His head's exposed here. You can see where we painted that. I just used some Vallejo. I believe this is some bone color, and I was painted across black, so it gave it a little bit of a splotchy look. I painted over that black, so I just kind of left it like that. And then I took some reds and blacks, mixed it together, and watered it down, and then kind of just added a small wash to kind of bring out those injuries to the back of his head. So I thought that turned out pretty well. I've also used some Model Masters Gloss Black right here. That seems to be a really good match for the Krylon Gloss Black. I've used that to touch up a few areas, and it's blended in quite well. To come back and kind of clean this line up with that, where I did some painting in a few other areas. There's obviously, as I put this together, we've had to touch up. When I put the lightsaber in, it was a really tight fit, and it kind of chipped away some of the paint from the fingers. Again, I used this Model Masters Gloss Black and touched it up, and it really blended in quite well. You can hardly tell where I've done that. So we're getting close to putting them all together. We got to install his lights, and then we'll fit them all together, and I'm sure there's going to be some cleanup as we attach this all together. I'm just using, to glue them together right now, I'm just using this Rapid Fuse from DAP, and it's just super glue. It's a little thicker than, it's not super thin, it's not super thick either, but it seems to be working pretty well. So just working on getting them together now. Got to attach those lights and put them all together. Alright, we're about ready to assemble our Darth Vader here. We got the wiring connected, I did test it, all my lights are working. So now I just have to join these two parts together, add in his head. I'm going to attach him to the base. He's not attached to his base right now. And we'll get them all together, assembled, and make some minor whatever touch-ups we need to do after we get them assembled, and we should be done. So when I come back, we should be all finished. Alright, well here we are with our finished AMT ERTL vinyl Darth Vader. Again, this is my first vinyl kit. It had its own challenges. It's definitely different than plastic, where it's easy to kind of add on and build onto it, and sand and stuff of that nature. Vinyl, you pretty much have to kind of mold, heat up, mold, cut away the excess. I did a little bit of putty just in some of the very minor seams. So for the most part, this model didn't require a whole lot of that. Overall, I'm very happy with the way it turned out. One of the things that didn't turn out the way I'd hoped is the lightsaber just doesn't light up quite as bright as it doesn't really, it's hard to tell that it's even lit up. The light, for whatever reason, is not illuminating the transparent red plastic. I did switch to using the original blade. Felt like it fit in better and had a little bit meatier look to it. You can see his blinking light on his chest plate, and you can make out his green lights on his belt here on both sides, and those are nice. I didn't want them to be overpowering. I didn't want it to be like a blinding flashlight, just something lit when you look. You can notice that it is a light there. As far as going together, just super glued them together and hooked up. He's running off a 9-volt battery. The helmet is just sitting on top of them, so that's removable, and it doesn't really click into position, but it does have it has a grooved area to where you can set it on there, find the right position for it to sit on. But you can remove it and look at the paintwork that I did on the back of his head if you wanted to display it that way, and perhaps put the top of his helmet somewhere else. And again, that kind of holds on nicely. I did have to trim a little bit from his waist skirt. It was a little long. It was hitting against the display, so I had to trim probably a 1/4 inch off the bottom of that. Maybe it's just the way I have them displayed. It's making them sit too far back or something. I'm not sure. I thought about doing a material cape because I had my doubts about this one, but I did manage to get this one on without too much problem. I think it turned out well. Again, almost all the painting is done with Krylon gloss black, and then I went in with some Vallejo matte varnish to paint all his uniform, except for his gloves and boots. We left that glossy. On his cape, we also did a gloss black on the outside. His cape and skirt, we did a gloss black. I did a flat black on the inside, so it's actually a two-tone cape. So when you look at the inside and outside, you get a different effect. But also on the outside of the cape, where I did the gloss black, I added a Rust-Oleum satin finish, clear satin finish, so it has a little bit different texture than the gloss or the flat. So you get several shades or textures of black with the gloss, the satin, and the flat. And I think that really brings out his uniform. We painted in, I masked off, painted in the silver on the shoulder pads, and that was about it. Glued the head into place, and there we go. It was a fun project. It was a learning experience dealing with vinyl, and I think he makes for a really nice display. I think he's almost 13 inches tall from the head, probably a little higher if you include the lightsaber. So he's a nice size display. It's just a little bit different working with. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Until next time, everybody have a good one.